So, about a month ago I bought Mass Effect, which was actually pretty convenient because no less than a day later, they then decided to put it on Game Pass, which, was just fine. It's not like I'm financially crippled or anything, but hey, guess that serves me right for using an expendable income on a fucking video game. Hello everybody, my name is Mingus, and today we're going to be taking a brief look at what on earth Mass Effect has to do with modern gaming. Let's get on with it. What is Mass Effect? Isn't a question I expect is being asked much in 2022, but if you've been living under a stone slab for the last 15 years, Mass Effect is, well, fucking brilliant. Without going into spoilers, it's really difficult for me to break the game down. One of the best parts of the experience for me especially was going in as blind as possible. Besides being told the story is pretty rich, I truly had no clue what to expect, and if you haven't played this, I'd honestly recommend the same for you too, but again, for the point of this video, I won't be touching on anything too spoilery, so not to worry. But just to establish some context, Mass Effect is a game that, for whatever reason, I just never got around to playing. I guess other things just caught my attention more, and as time grew on, the game started to look more and more dated, and the idea of starting the series just became something I figured I might have missed the boat on with this one. Now this was up until they then released the Legendary Edition last year, which more or less gave me the perfect opportunity to get started, and fast forward to now, it's ended up being one of the best experiences I've ever had in gaming. So what was so good about it? Well, just to establish some context, I've always been more of a story-driven player. Being able to immerse myself into a fictional universe and just being able to get an actual look into how the world actually works and how the different people interact, and ultimately understanding what the world-changing stakes are, however big in scope, is a big part of what makes me a fan of any piece of entertainment, and Mass Effect is able to cater to that perfectly. The world building and overall narrative is something I was more than just invested in, I was literally obsessed. Do you want to know how long it actually took me to complete this game? 2 days. I'm not even joking, I sat down and started playing. About 14 hours later I thought it might be time to head to bed, and the next day I sat down for another 12 and I was done. I couldn't believe it. I mean, in fairness, the game was paced really well. I definitely was getting the impression I was nearing the end. I just couldn't fathom how I'd been able to get through this whole thing in less than 48 hours. But it was then I realised I literally do not have a life, so I mean, it's the little things, right? Going back to Mass Effect, the characters were actually really good. I didn't expect to even think about caring about them, because for me, I struggled to get attached to video game characters that I either didn't grow up playing or aren't on the Naughty Dog or Rockstar Games level of characterization, so the fact that I was able to be really invested in so many of these characters was really a pleasant surprise. This here is my boy Rex.
Shepard.
Rex.
Shepard.
Rex.
Shepard.
We like Rex, and they even managed to bring the Arbiter in.
I think it's about time we told the commander what's really going on. This mission.
We like him too. I was genuinely invested in these characters, making decisions based on their individual stories and traits. It all felt like an interactive story where your actions have real consequences, and that's because that's exactly what it was, so you're welcome for that. It actually got to the point where I was resetting my saves, sometimes even going back over an hour, just because I wanted to ensure these characters got the best outcome, which for me isn't a level of care I'm always able to have for video game characters. On top of all of that, the gameplay is just fun. It's got a bit of jank to it, I've got to admit. Even in the Legendary Edition there's a good level of clunk, but I'm somehow able just to overlook any examples of these. I haven't been so enthralled in a video game since some of my earlier gaming years, to the point where I'm getting nostalgic over that first playthrough just thinking about it. And here's the thing, this was literally a month ago. I never got to experience Mass Effect as a kid, and now I'm having this reaction to it at this age. Makes me kind of glad in some ways, but also kind of heartbroken. On the one angle, I feel like my 12-year-old self wouldn't have had the same level of appreciation, but on the other, I feel like its impact would have been so much greater back then. The point is, Mass Effect is a game I can look at with a pretty clear lens. It's not like any of these games I grew up with where I've now got this unconditional love for them. Mass Effect actually had to work for it, and that's not to suggest any of these games didn't, but maybe that's the whole point. See, this game was released in 2007, which alone I thought was pretty impressive. Then I thought about how Halo 3 was also released that same year, which then got me thinking, These two absolute bangers both came out the same year as when the Simpsons game was released, and it was at this point, a quick Google search led me to a realization. 2007 was a fucking incredible year for gaming. I don't need to go into what makes these games so great. History, along with plenty of other YouTubers, have done a good enough job of that, but what's clear to me is that we truly had no idea how good we really had it back then. See, fast forward to 2021 and it's not difficult to see where I'm going here. I'm not saying every game released these days is bad, but there's a pretty stark contrast between the general AAA releases we get today compared to the ones that we did back then. I'm pretty basic when it comes to games, so I was only really excited for COD, Halo, Mass Effect and Back 4 Blood, but the only games that really did it for me were obviously Mass Effect and, surprisingly, Forza Horizon 5. Everything else has kind of fallen short of what we were expecting, to the point where my opinions on Halo Infinite are souring so much that I'm just about this close to privating those videos and making a whole new video on the matter. The point I'm trying to make here is that modern gaming has taken this sour turn in recent years to the point where it's fundamentally missing the whole point of what made it so great. Games back then actually had heart. It wasn't like how it is today, where the majority of AAA projects aren't started with the intention of practicing the art form of video game development. They're simply used as tools of brand recognition in order to bring in cash. I mean, let's just look at Halo for example. I will always love these games, but my god, if they had any sense of artistic integrity, they had just ended it after Reach, but here we are 11 years later having to deal with this fucking husk of a series that I'm sure we all once loved. I don't know what world we're living in where this has just become the norm these days, but I mean, just look at how amazed people get when they see how incredibly designed a game from 2007 is. I sometimes see people try and argue that we're just being too nostalgic and it really isn't all that bad. I say fuck off to that. Just have a look and do some minor comparisons and it's pretty clear to see how low the bar's dropped and how obviously money grabbing these corporations have become. I know in myself for a fact that I am not being blinded by nostalgia here, and do you want to know why? Playing Mass Effect has given me nostalgia and I played it a fucking month ago. If modern games were truly as good, would they not be doing the same thing? I guess, in conclusion, Mass Effect proves to me that modern AAA gaming is kinda dogshit. That's pretty much it. Now, you're probably thinking Mass Effect was a funny example to use, but for me it was the only logical choice. I don't really play that many games these days, let alone games from 2007, and for me personally, it's less than likely I'll be playing too many more games from that era at this point. Except that now after playing Mass Effect, I think maybe I will. As I said, these games have heart to them, and as I'm getting older, it's become less about the dopamine hit when something cool happens on screen, and more about how the piece of media actually impacts me. You know, how it makes me feel and think, and ultimately the impression I'm left with, and unfortunately, modern games just don't leave me with that same impact anymore. And whenever it seems to come close, the novelty just seems to wear off. And linking it all back to Mass Effect is just not the case here. I guess looking at it in hindsight, it's just kinda sad to me. It's honestly gotten to the point now where making videos about playing video games has honestly gotten more fun than actually playing video games. But hey, we take what we can get, eh? At least I've still got Mass Effect 3 to complete, so there's always that. Now, trying to condense this subject into such a small amount of time is a big challenge, and we'll never be able to do the game nor the topic the justice it really deserves. This is why a much longer video that really goes into the game will be coming soon. It's gonna be the biggest video I've ever made and I can't wait to get started on it. I just need to make sure people will actually watch the bloody thing, cause looking at these stats it really ain't looking good. But like I said before, we take what we can get. So, with that, I have been Mingus, and thanks to each and every one of you for watching up to this point. All 3 of you. Take it easy.